Tonight on Network Earth, we take you to every tourist fantasy land, Nepal. It's the home of the exotic, the mystic, the alluring. Tourists are entranced by the magic of Nepal. They crowd and clamor to experience its ancient culture and religious traditions. But as Jack Hammond discovered, those tourists are Nepal's problem.
Is the fact that there are so many Westerners here taking pictures, including us,
right.
Do you think that...
I think it's an invasion, really, of their privacy.
In our increasingly overpopulated and polluted world, there are still some places that can truly inspire awe. This is one of them. I'm standing at 12,000 feet in the Himalayan mountains, and I've just had my first clear view of Mount Everest. And after that experience, it's not hard to understand why hundreds of thousands of Western tourists every year are traveling to our planet's few remaining exotic locations. But in Nepal, what was once a trickle of tourists is now fast becoming a flood. And both here at Everest and in the incredible city of Kathmandu, the presence of so many Westerners is raising a critical question. Can we still come to Nepal to be inspired without ruining the inspiration?
It's easy to get lost in Kathmandu. In fact, on my first day here, I want to get lost, inhaling the music, the color, the dust, and the riot of activity all around me.
How much? How much?
500
rupee? 500 rupee, that's $10.
This 350.
20 rupees.
Okay, 250.
35.
225.
800 rupees.
150.
Okay.
Okay, 150.
Okay.
Kathmandu is the latest refuge for tourists in search of the exotic. Folks here will tell you that Nepal is home to three great religions: Hinduism, Buddhism, and tourism. 100,000 tourists visit this city every year, a figure the government would like to double or even triple in just the next few years. And it would seem an easy task. After all, this is Shangri-La, a country with a colorful history and a rich culture, a melting pot of people from both India to the south and China and Tibet to the north. But there is another Kathmandu, the real Kathmandu, a surprising side of the city I never expected to find. As tourists rush into Nepal, Nepal rushes into the 20th century, scarring first the culture and then the environment of this magical land. Each morning I pass the Bishnumani River, where barefoot children wade in some of the filthiest water I've ever seen, a river that carries disease through the heart of the city. My daily walk takes me through streets piled with human waste and rotting garbage. Kathmandu is a city suffocating in an urban environmental mess.
In some villages there will be a common water source that's used as drinking water, that's used as a place to...
Polly Fabian is an American doctor who works in Kathmandu.
How about this? Is this typical here, what we're looking at here?
Yeah, this is a fairly typical fairly typical finding at a busy intersection or even a not so busy intersection. We used to have a pile like this right outside our house.
Dr. Fabian says tourists often draw quick conclusions, the wrong conclusions, she says, about why Kathmandu has become so filthy.
I think it makes sense to not come here and say, oh, these people are awful, they're dirty, and they're throwing things in the river, and they don't know anything about, how to keep things clean. No wonder they get sick. And try to understand, why it is that things have gotten like this.
Okay, let's try to understand. The mess in the city is directly related to the geography of the rest of the country. This is home to the highest mountains in the world. That means only a small fraction of Nepal is low enough and flat enough to grow crops. There is no longer enough food to feed Nepal's exploding population. It's a country roughly the same size as the state of Georgia, but with 3 times as many people crowded into a few tiny corridors of habitable land. Nepal's population has doubled over the past 30 years and will soar by the same amount in just the next 10 years. Broughton Coburn's flower-filled garden is a rare oasis of quiet on the outskirts of Kathmandu. He is an American writer, engineer, and philosopher who first came to Nepal nearly 20 years ago.
There is some resistance to birth control, largely because of the traditional feeling that you need a son to support you in your old age. And that's why many families will keep on having children until they have at least 2 sons, or 3.
Broughton Coburn says Western governments have poured billions of dollars in foreign aid here over the past 30 years with very little to show for it. Nepali people have one of the lowest per capita incomes and just about the worst medical care of any nation on earth. And that is why Nepal so desperately wants tourists and their dollars to provide money for food and medicine for an increasingly overcrowded nation. But tourism, it turns out, isn't all it's cracked up to be. Western tourists, including me, tend to demand Western-style conveniences. As a result, scarce resources here tend to go to building hotels and restaurants instead of roads, sewers, and schools.
Well, and as you can see in Kathmandu now, certainly all of the Western visitors appreciate all of the good restaurants that are springing up as fast as Yakdong along the trail to Everest.
Yet Nepal's tourist industry encourages that kind of development, and even worse, it encourages the deeply religious Nepali people to put some of their most treasured cultural traditions on public display. I witnessed a serious Western intrusion during the festival of Dasant, the holiest celebration of the Hindu calendar. I stand in a crowd watching buffalo and goats being beheaded, sacrificed for the Hindu goddess Durga.
The fact that there are so many Westerners here taking pictures, including us,
including us, right?
Do you think that?
I think it's an invasion, really, of their privacy, but they don't seem to mind it.
But just outside the gate, excluded Nepalis tell me they do mind.
It's your festival.
It's my festival, but I'm not allowed. Only tourists.
Can Kathmandu be saved? It's hard to tell. But most Westerners, including me, leave here with a sense that Kathmandu is a city with a culture and a history worth saving. An exotic, breathless city that deserves a breather.
If you've ever been to a crowded national park full of people in their Winnebagos, then perhaps you've wished you could find a place where there were no cars, no roads even, just trails. Well, welcome to Sagarmatha National Park, home of Mount Everest, here in the Himalayas in Nepal. It's the highest national park in the world, but it's also one of the most fragile, and the man who runs this place faces an increasing series of challenges. Challenges particularly from visitors like us from the West.
They are the youngest mountains on our planet, remnants of a once great sea thrust toward the heavens. The Himalayas are breathtaking proof that nature keeps building even as wind, weather, and people try to tear it down. I start my trek at an altitude of 2 miles above sea level. I'll be hiking up from here, working my way toward a village called Tengboche. But I won't be alone. On the trail to Tengboche, I pass dozens and dozens of locals and tourists, making this one of the busiest hiking corridors in Nepal. In just the past 5 years, the number of Western tourists in this region has doubled to 10,000 trekkers a year, and that figure could double again in the next 5 years. The signs of change are everywhere. At just about every bend in the trail, I come upon brand new tourist lodges being carefully carved to life. I enter the dark, smoky kitchen of one lodge where women who now work grueling hours servicing Western tourists tell me they eagerly await the arrival of electricity. On its way in just a few short months, thanks to a massive hydroelectric project in this region. They're going to have electrical power. Is that a good thing or a bad thing for?
It's a good thing.
Why?
Huh? It's easy for us to do work.
And you don't need to then use wood and all of that, yes. Right now, the Sherpa people of the Himalayan highlands use wood for 95% of their energy needs, including all their cooking and eating. The parade of Western tourists I pass along the trail purchase cooked meals from the lodges at all hours of the day. That ensures that even more wood will be devoured and helps explain the huge scars I can see on the hillside next to the village of Phak Ding. As I climb ever upward, the trail zigzags across roaring rivers. If the rickety suspension bridges weren't challenge enough, I often share them with half-ton yaks, carrying provisions for organized groups of trekkers headed the same direction. Those groups are often blamed for the piles of litter I see wherever I go, primarily the throwaway packaging that comes with so many Western products. You know, Warden, you see a lot of things in here, bottles and cans and plastic that you probably didn't see here 10 years ago because people up here probably didn't use this much packaging. Is this becoming a problem, having that much?
Yes, it is. It comes behind tourist, right, Jack. But this area, it is a seriously tourist area anyway.
Very serious tourist area.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everybody loves
Surya Pandey, the warden of Sagarmatha National Park, tells me that most trekkers who travel in large groups would be surprised to learn that their trekking agencies often do a poor job of disposing of their litter. Of course, individual trekkers can share much of the blame with those who travel in groups. In this deeply religious country, I see Buddhist prayer flags everywhere I hike. Just a few feet away, I see pink wads of tourist prayer flags. That's the name locals have given to the pink toilet paper Western trekkers leave everywhere. After 3 days on the trail, there is something quite humbling about my first glimpse of Mount Everest. It's easy to see why Tibetan monks chose the village of Tengboche to build their imposing stone monastery. Inside the monastery, I am part of a large crowd of spectators mesmerized by Buddhist monks performing the elaborate dances of the festival of Mani Rimdu. Mani Rindu is supposed to be a festival for the Sherpa people, a time for spiritual renewal and socializing. But socializing has declined dramatically because Mani Rindu now attracts more foreigners than Sherpas.
Is this an important festival for the Sherpas?
Yeah, it is. It is important for the festival, not for tourists. Partly because they can take a photo, but they shouldn't reserve all the monastery.
Ongrita Sherpa, who was born and raised in this area, says many of his friends now boycott the festival. Everywhere I turn, I can see that traditional Sherpa culture is under assault. The Buddhist teachings of self-denial come face to face with the Western expressions of self-indulgence. For me, one of the most revealing episodes of this year's Mani Rindu Festival is a skit, a play performed while most Westerners have gone off to eat lunch. A Buddhist monk dressed as a jester taunts a tourist, making fun of trekkers' bad habits like taking too many photographs and leaving toilet paper and trash along the trails. The small crowd of Sherpas love it.
And how would you like it if all these people came to your hometown and started throwing their toilet paper around and dumping out their garbage and polluting your streams and polluting your fireplace and not respecting your religion? I mean, it's just, that's sort of what the bottom line is for me.
And the bottom line for me after my long journey in the Himalayas is that this kind of travel now comes a little too easily and too cheaply for most Western visitors. I would be willing to pay much more money for my trekking permit if that money could go directly to efforts to keep Everest clean, to plant new trees, and to help the Sherpa people accommodate the new Western ways of life. Of course, there are some things money can't buy. Buddhist culture offers lessons about living a simpler life, a life which by its very nature is kinder to the environment.